We've had an interesting 5 weeks of From Season 2, so I ended up making this list of some crazy but somewhat plausible theories about Fromland that I've come up with or I've seen people talking about around the community. I haven't seen enough evidence for any of these theories to make a separate 5 to 10 minute video on any of them, but I wouldn't be too surprised if some of them end up happening in the actual show. Number 1. The dates in the lighthouse. Each of the 8 dates shown in the lighthouse vision symbolize each cycle of Fromland. This theory goes that Fromland itself has existed since at least the 14th century, basing it off of what we see in Tabitha's vision. Over the time period, thousands and thousands of people have come through, lived in, and died at Fromland. The entity who controls Fromland made it as a way to specifically extract the so-called negative energy from human beings. So Fromland is built from the ground up as a place to maximize things like despair, agony, fear, and of course, terror. But the entity is very hungry, and a few people aren't enough. So the energy gets bottled up and stored each cycle, which is usually a couple decades, so that it can be fed when the bottle is full. So when the bottle is full of this type of energy, the worshippers depicted in the cave drawings are the ones who feed the entity to keep him calm and docile. In order to maximize extraction of this energy, the ghoul creatures torture their victims for maximum output. Once the entity has fed off of enough negative energy from that particular cycle, the rest gets implanted into a child of his choosing. And this is how we get the children in white. And from these children in white, the entity conjures up new monsters from their fears that will terrorize the people in the next cycle. And that's why we have things like spiders, the current ghoul creatures, as well as the Civil War soldiers. The child who is currently locked up in the underground cave is meant to be the newest one after this cycle is complete. The other ones we've already seen are from previous cycles, but the boy in white somehow escaped being used by the entity. It's an interesting theory and definitely answers a lot of questions. Anyways, number 2, the talisman runes are the rules of the game. The main rule is that the monsters have all night to kill the humans, but because the monsters have superior bodies, they are forbidden from running, or else they'll be disqualified and eliminated permanently. During the day, the role of monster will always flip. And now the humans have the capability to kill these fairy ghouls as long as the sun stays up. And this is what the talisman represents. It's like a game of cops and robbers, and the roles switch from time to time. If the fairy ghouls kill all the humans in a particular night, then they will win. If the humans kill all the fairy ghouls on a particular day, then the humans will win. And this is why Christopher was manipulated to kill or reveal everyone's hiding spots in Victor's flashback. Whoever manages to kill the others first wins the game and gets to progress to the next stage. Or the current cycle ends, or maybe they even get to leave Fromland altogether. It's a theory that I like a lot because it really gives a solid explanation for the meaning of the rules on the talisman. But this still doesn't explain why the fairy ghouls know the names of the townspeople and the types of people that they'd be mesmerized by. Bare minimum, that implies they have some sort of psychic ability, or alternatively, that there's someone intentionally selecting these people and feeding information about them to the ghoul monsters. Number 3, the guy who answered Jim's radio call lives in the lighthouse. The guy in the lighthouse has been trying to talk to the townspeople for a long time, but his transmissions don't end up going through because the town's radios aren't strong enough. The electromagnetic discharge from his attempts to communicate are part of the reason why the jukeboxes at the diner and the radios at the town start playing static, and why they play music randomly during times of the day. He wants to help the people of the town, but can't leave the lighthouse because his mission there is really important. This is why he told Jim to tell Tabitha to stop digging the hole. because he didn't want the entity to make things harder for the townspeople. He can hear conversations through the wires of the town that pass electricity somehow. He is waiting for someone at the lighthouse, but that person has never showed up. He was told he has to wait there until that person arrives, or else they'll never be able to leave Fromland. This is why he makes sure that the beacon from the lighthouse is turned on at all times. Reaching the lighthouse is only possible after either finding the ghoul monster's weakness and therefore being able to kill them, or finding the talismans and therefore being able to sleep in the woods at night. Perhaps even doing both, as doing that allows you to easily survive in the forest one way or the other. And that is by design of the creators of Fromland and meant as a sign of progression. Number 4. Martin and the boy in white are the same person. Now this is crazy. When Boyd and Sarah got close to the lighthouse, Boyd gets bitten by the spiders and he starts losing hope. Nighttime is coming close, but Boyd doesn't want to keep going until Sarah convinces him. The boy in white directs Sarah into the faraway tree and they both end up going into it. After that, Boyd ends up meeting the old man who is trapped in the dungeon for an unspecified amount of time. Maybe he was there for decades. We don't know. Martin, the old man, asks Boyd to kill him, but Boyd doesn't want to do that, of course, because he doesn't know anything about him. The theory goes that the boy in white is a manifestation made by Martin so that he can be killed and escape his torture at the dungeon. If Martin himself is necessary for Fromland to exist, perhaps he was trying to get Boyd there so he can give him the worms and be freed from his ties to Fromland and therefore be able to die. It also adds a darker side to his attempts to talk with Ethan. Perhaps the dogs in season 1 at the forest were trying to prevent Ethan from finding the old man and therefore prevent Ethan from inheriting the worms and Martin's burden. Number 5. The dogs are evil and tried to get Boyd killed. In season 1, around the first few months when Boyd got to Fromland, he goes to explore the forest and he ends up finding a dog out there. The dog ends up running away and Boyd follows him into the woods. Before he knows it, Boyd loses his way and it's nighttime. Boyd realizes he has to find a place to hide, but he ends up finding the talismans, so he survives. In season 2, after exiting the dungeon, Boyd meets the dog that he met previously a few years ago. Boyd ends up following the dog and the dog suddenly, poof, it's gone. Once again, leading Boyd to the monsters. Boyd hides because he sees the monsters before they see him and he survives once again, seemingly by chance. The dogs being evil is an interesting idea because every time they lead Boyd somewhere, he ends up getting very close to the monsters and almost dies. It could be the dogs can kill you through suggesting that you make specific actions, but they can't do it directly because it's against the rules. Hence them being unable to reveal Boyd's location to the monsters by barking at him, but they are allowed to lead you to the monster. It's worth noting that there were 2 dogs in Victor's flashback and they seemed to be barking at Victor so that he wouldn't talk with the boy in white. If the boy in white is good and the dogs are evil, it may explain why they didn't want Victor to gain information from the boy in white. Also interesting is that these dogs have been in Fromland for like 40 years and they're still alive. So they definitely seem to be somewhat supernatural. But anyways, those are 5 different theories that I think are really interesting and they're very possible. My next video is going to be a predictions video for episode 6, so make sure you watch out for that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video. Peace.